Hello and happy Friday. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another fascinating episode of Fridays Live.
It's called Findmypast Fridays. Right, I think we're going to have a new name for it.
I like Fridays Live. But regardless of...
Fridays Live, from
Fridays
now
Live.
on.
Regardless of what we call it, it's our weekly show we do each week about family history and all things interesting to family historians. And yeah, I think the reason Max and I are in such a jubilant mood today is because the weather is so amazing. It's cracking the flags in London today. So I suspect many of you in the UK won't be getting too much research done this weekend. But regardless of that, tell us where you're watching from, tell us what the weather's like. But before I just tell you what we're going to be talking about this week, I wanted to all ask you to wish Max a very happy birthday. You didn't know I was going to do that, you pulled a face. But no, it was Max's birthday this week, so happy birthday, Max.
Thank you.
And yeah, now I've actually said your name, I should also introduce myself.
You probably should, yes.
Yeah, if you're watching for the first time, I'm Alex Cox. I host these virtually every week. And I'm joined off camera by the wonderful Max Anderton. And yeah, we're here to talk about all things family history, stuff that's going on behind the scenes at Find My Past, things we're generally excited about, share tips, tricks for research, but we're also here to talk to you and hear from you as well. So do get involved, join in the comments. And without further ado, that brings me on to what is our question of the week. As you know, we like to kick these off by asking a question of the week every week to get everyone talking, get the ideas flowing. And this week's question is off the back of this week's episode of Who Do You Think You Are? So our broadcast today is based around the subject of revelations. Yes, not the apocalyptic book from the New Testament. Family history revelations, surprising discoveries, shocks, bizarre finds, things that have knocked you sideways that you've come across in your research. Because this week's episode of Who Do You Think You Are featured Shirley Ballas, and it was a revelation-packed episode, to say the least. There was many a revelation. So yeah, our question of the week this week is, just share your family history revelations. What amazing discoveries have you found? What have you found that's genuinely surprised you? And
they can be small as well.
They can be
small discoveries.
They don't need to be anything earth-shattering. Just let us know that something you've found that's genuinely surprised you.
I mean, they can even be little things like, for example, my granddad, turns out that he had a completely different name. And no one in the family seems to know this, and the names aren't even related. But
and that's also a significant revelation, because if you hadn't found that out, good luck doing your tree.
Yeah,
you've got the wrong name. And we are actually giving away a prize this week. We usually give away subs and whatnot, but this week it's a physical prize, and we're not. It's just we're picking at random, I guess. All you need to do to be in with a chance to win is enter. Just comment on the video. We've had loads of comments coming through. Thank you. By the way, thank you to everyone who's wishing me a happy birthday. Yeah, it was lovely. They're a lovely bunch.
I'm not very old, promise.
But yes, this week's prize, and I do think it's a good one, is the National Archives official family historian's guide to census records. It's incredibly detailed, published about 2 years ago, so it's still up to date and all the information in it is current. But the reason I thought this was a good prize was because in this week's episode of Who Do You Think You Are, census records led to a lot of the discoveries, and this episode showed that censuses can often be a lot more powerful than you suspect. So yes, if you want to be in with a chance of winning the National Archives official guide to exploring UK census records, just comment. And we will announce the winner at the end, will we, Max?
Yeah, we might as well do it at the end.
And then you just contact us and give us your address and we'll get it off in the post to you. But yes, we've already had a few good ones in, so I'll read a few out, shall I? So I've had one in from Michelle Watson, who said, nothing earth-shattering, the criminal history of my great-grandfather. It got national press as it involved a rooftop chase that resulted in a policeman falling into an outside privy. That is brilliant.
That is amazing.
I wonder if that's the kind of thing that would get depicted in the Illustrated Police News. If you haven't looked, Michelle.
In graphic detail.
Yeah, no, it would, particularly with him falling into a privy. So if you haven't looked in the Illustrated Police News, I would do so. Sue Kelly, who said, oh, this is a good one. I'm guessing by the what you've sent in, so you're watching from the US, so howdy from us. Sue Kelly says, a relative in San Quentin, the famous prison itself, for attempted murder of another relative. They were cousins, and he was jealous of her fiancé. Her fiancé then brought her a gun for protection. It was the Wild West after all. Wow, some of these are great, really sordid.
Oh, you love it when they're sordid, don't you?
I do, I really do. And Chris Kirk said, I found family links to a World War I ace pilot. That's very cool. That's very cool. Links to a general and a great uncle killed at sea on a vessel hitting a mine 3 weeks after the 3 weeks after the 1918 armistice. Wow, your family really was impacted by the war. So we've also had one from Chris Lang. Oh no, this isn't a revelation. This is just a comment Chris Lang sent in. Chris is one of our regular viewers. Hello, Chris. And Chris has just said, I hope the handy new site feature, because that is also something I'll be sharing with you this week. We've added a new site feature. Doesn't mess the site up as with the recently introduced features. So I think Chris is relaying here to our new dashboard. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you very much for sending that, Chris, in. It's really important that people like you, Chris, do send these comments in because it's very much an iterative update. You know, it's not permanent. We're looking to develop it, and the only way we can find out whether it works for researchers or not is by trialing it on the site. So yeah, thank you for sending that in, Chris. We do pass it on. Just to reassure you. And and I just wanted to also say hello to another regular viewer, Nick Hancock, who has kindly taken Nick sent in a great little, an amazing photo of an heirloom. No, not a photo. Sent in a story about a family heirloom in last week's video, which was a World War II German paratrooper's wristwatch, which was in his grandfather's possession. We wanted to know a bit more about it. So Nick kindly sent in the details, and it was even more interesting than we'd anticipated, along with a photo of the watch that still works. But Nick went one step further than that. He kindly scanned his grandfather's service record and sent that in. So Nick's also given us permission to share this amazing story with you, which I'm going to do once I've had a little bit more of a thorough look through the service record with Paul Nixon, our military expert. But yeah, no, if you're watching, Nick, I just wanted to say thank you as well, because you may be surprised to know this, but it's the first time I've ever really got to explore a World War II service record in detail, because of course none of them are online. So thanks very much, Nick. Hopefully Paul and I can find something new. It looks like you already know quite a lot about your granddad, but we'll be discussing that in next week's broadcast.
Alex, I've actually run out of batteries in my microphone. I'm just going to go and grab some more, but I've sent you through some good comments that have come through to your site.
Oh, okay. You probably didn't hear that. We're having minor technical issues. Max's microphone has just run out of battery, so he's gone off to get some more. So yeah, just to refresh, question of the week, what are your biggest family history revelations? Get them in with a chance to win a copy of the National Archives official guide to exploring census records. Problem solved?
Yep.
Amazing. And on the subject of questions, we also wanted to do a bit of a family history poll this week. It's just for a bit of fun, but we wanted to get a sense of how honest you all are, and that sounds awful, how honest you are and what kind of things you truly value when it comes to your family history and your research. You're back on the air. So you're going to ask 3 questions, and this is just for fun. It's just a poll. And the first one is very on topic, so I hope you're all watching. Do answer. As with some of the revelations that have been sent in, say you're doing your research and you find a seriously black sheep in your family tree. I mean, this person's done stuff that you couldn't even imagine. What do? Do you keep digging and uncover all the lurid details, or do you just leave it be? Because maybe some things are just best left to rest. So yeah, A, keep digging. B, leave it be. What would you do?
I've got a feeling I know what everyone's going to say. I don't think any good genealogist worth their salt would go for B.
Well,
I shouldn't say that though, should I?
No, the reason I asked that is because someone I used to work with here, my colleague Amy, she hasn't worked here for a few years, but when we got our new crime collection, she basically found a truly heinous, very disturbing crime in her family tree. And it affected her so badly, because it was only 3 generations back, so it's not that long ago, but the whole thing freaked her out so much she just sealed it shut and didn't look into it any further. And that was someone who was very into genealogy, but she found it so distasteful she didn't want to know anymore. But I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I suppose it is on a case-by-case basis. If something's incredibly,
and that's what I'm going for. It's not like, they nicked a shirt.
Yeah,
that's something really unpleasant.
Having said that, though, the comments just came flying, and everyone just going, "Keep digging, keep digging."
That's because they're all like us. They like the morbid facts.
But also, here's a considerate sort of approach to it. Eloise LV Wood, hello Eloise, she said, "I would keep digging to satisfy my own curiosity, but perhaps won't tell anyone." You don't have to share it, do you? That's the difference, I think.
No, and that actually is pretty much what. Actually, no, I'll wait for that. But anyway, so before we go back into the subject of revelations and read out some of your amazing submissions, I just wanted to let you know about a new site feature and the records that we've added to the site today, because of course it's Friday, which means new record day. We add new records every single Friday. We're the only people that do it. But if you do want to know more about what we add every single week, there's the emails that go out. If you don't receive them currently, maybe worth going onto your account, and I believe there's an area called the Preference Center where you can select which emails you get. But I not only just because I write them, I think the Friday emails are very useful, so I would recommend subscribing to them, because just because your ancestor isn't there 1 week doesn't mean they might not be there in 3-4 weeks' time, and it's a great way of keeping up to date. But no, the main headline from this week's releases is that we've added an additional 37,000 open records to the 1939 register. So if any of you are scratching your head thinking, what does that mean? Basically, when we launched the 1939 register about 2 years ago, because it still had a lot of people in there who are alive, and of course, they don't want their information publicly accessible in an online document like the register. So we had to redact a lot of people that were assumed to still be living. But since then, we've been, by matching people's details with other records in our databases, we've opened up over 4 million of these closed records. And so, the register just keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going. So yeah, if you've struggled to find people in the 1939 register, it might be worth having another look today, because we've added another 37,000 and more are to come. We've also added a selection of registers and records from various counties across the UK. And the reason I wanted to talk about these quickly is because I reckon they're record sets that frequently get skipped over because they're a little bit unusual. They tend to be digitised publications, historical publications, but I just wanted to kind of encourage you to have a little look in there, because some of them are so fantastically weird and wacky, and they might not all be particularly beneficial to your family history. Some will be, but they're just great little historical texts. So, like, just to give you an example of some of the stuff that's in this week's. So, in our collection of Derbyshire registers and records, there's a book published in the 1700s called "The Brave Men of Eyam." And some of you may know the story, but Eyam was a small town in Derbyshire, and during the Black Death, the men of the village took the brave decision to seal the entire population in so they wouldn't affect their neighbours. And this is a really old historical book on this subject, written obviously a long time, quite a time after the events happened, but I'm trying to think of a way of wording it, nearer to the event than today, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a more succinct way of saying it.
There would have been a much more succinct way of saying it. But so, and the preface to some of these books are great. So this one says, it acknowledges that, it's recording an event that did happen, but it reminds the reader that the object of this book is to tell, in a popular form, a tale of mighty woe. I like that. So it's saying, yeah, well, most of this is historically accurate. We are trying to make this a piece of entertainment as well. But yeah, so we've got ones from Cumberland, Derbyshire, Devon, Cheshire. Go visit the blog. Max will pop the links in the comments to find out more. We've also added a load of new newspapers as well, which you can also find out about on the blog. But I don't want to spend all this time talking about the records. I wanted to share with you the new search feature we've added to the 1939 register. As we always like to remind you, this is a bit of a shameless sales pitch, but we are the official home of the 1939 register. We released it way before anybody else did, so we have more open records than anyone else and more advanced features than you will find on other family history websites. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but it's always good to remind you. But yeah, we're delighted to announce that we've added yet another cool feature to the register, which is adding a new form of related records. So those of you who've been using it already have probably noticed the fact that you get suggested census matches in your results. But as of, I believe, Wednesday, you will now also get suggested death matches as well. So yeah, we're really excited about that. We hope you will find it useful. It'll just make, particularly for people starting out on their research, it'll make finding death records for your wartime ancestors that bit easier. So yeah, let us know what you think, but alternatively let us know what future updates you'd like to see to the 39 register, because these are all things that, come from listening to our customers. So don't be shy, get your voice heard and let us know. So shall I ask another poll question now?
Yeah, I think before you do that though, did you have time to read out any of the comments while I was fetching?
No, I didn't. Shall I go have a look?
No, yeah, there's a couple of fantastic ones a lot on the subject of Revelation. I think it'd be quite nice to highlight some of the comments that the viewers have sent
You're
in.
right, that is why we're here after all.
Can you see them?
Oh yeah, wow. So we've got one from David Stern. Thank you very much, Dave. He said, an Archbishop of York and a witchfinder. Wow. Talk about heroes and villains. Could you tell us the name of the Witchfinder, David? I'd like to read a bit more about him. I must say that Hammer House of Horrors Witchfinder General is one of my favourite old-timey films. So, that's way up my street. You've got another one from Maria Yates, who said, my grandmother lied about her age on her marriage and was 8 months pregnant at the time. Back then, that would have been pretty scandalous. That's a good one. And Sharon Bedard, who said, my ancestor was a manageress in a high fashion store in Paris. Started out in the Cowes store and then Paris. Wow, that's quite a promotion. I think she returned to the UK when she discovered her husband blew his brains out in a hotel. Wow, that's quite
family history full of surprises.
I thought we'd get some shocking revelations in, but these have really caught me by surprise. Wow. Oh, and Nick. Nice to know you're watching, Nick. Has already said, I've got plans to head to the National Archives and get his unit war diaries. Oh, wow.
So if you're just joining us, this is a follow-on.
Yeah, this is a follow-on. Nick's kindly sent in some service records for his granddad because it's a really cool story and we're going to be sharing it with you in the not too distant future. Yeah, let us know how you get on, Nick. Yeah, and something I fully recommend doing as well. War diaries are amazing. So, shall I ask another poll question?
I think so, yeah.
This one's kind of related to the first one a bit, and someone actually might have already answered this in the last one, but still. So, not quite finding a black sheep, but this has happened to me. So, you uncover a big family lie. You find out a story that's been passed down all the way through the generations of your family is completely baseless, and someone just made it up. But at the same time, it's a family story that everyone buys into and loves. What do? Do you tell the rest of the family that your great whatever was a dirty liar, or do you keep it to yourself and protect everyone's feelings and the reputation of your ancestor? I've probably told you already, but we had the one with my Crimean War ancestor who claimed to have survived the charge of the Light Brigade. The whole my granddad was brought up on it, his dad was brought up on it, my mother was brought up on it. He was our real celebrated ancestor that we all admired. And then when I started working here, I found out that he wasn't there at all and he just made the whole thing up. And I didn't have the heart to tell my granddad. I told my mum and she said, let's just let granddad have that one. So yeah, what would you do?
I tell you who would not let granddad have that one.
Who?
And it's Nick Hancock, whose first comment was, correct everyone.
Oh yeah. I guess the truth is you're more honest than I am then.
Well, again, I think it depends entirely on the actual what the claim was in the first place.
Well, my granddad would brim with pride every time he talked about it. He loved telling this story, so I just didn't have the heart to go. Yeah, Joseph Jessup, he was a liar. He was never there. But no, as I said before, the reason we were talking about Revelations, and please do keep them coming in, was because this week's episode of Who Do You Think You Are was all about Revelations. Shirley Ballas. She started off hoping to solve two family mysteries. One was to find out more about the family story of her great-grandmother, who had an appalling reputation in the family. She was the story that had been passed down that was Clara Eccles. Her great-great-grandmother was a party girl who had cruelly abandoned her husband and children and ran off to America and left her husband to die of a broken heart. And the second story she wanted to disprove or prove was that she might have had some African ancestry. And the reason I just wanted to talk about this week's episode was because I thought it was really interesting in the sense that it showed how two of the most commonly used records that we take for granted were the ones that blew this apart. Census records and birth and marriage, BMDs. Records you normally think, oh, they're great for building the family tree, but they won't necessarily reveal anything shocking. But that is not always the case. So, I mean, the first census records with Clara basically showed that Clara had been very cruelly misrepresented. Not cruelly, it was unintentional. But the story that passed down was there was a grain of truth to it, but most of it was wildly inaccurate. So, finding Clara in the 1911 census, which I think we have here. showed that in 1911, Clara and George weren't even living together. So they were still married, but George wasn't at that address anymore. So in this census record here, you can see Clara was living at 31 Shore Street in Hoylake on the Wirral, which is my home turf. I'm from the Wirral, it's a beautiful place if you've ever been. And living as a shopkeeper. So that was the first thing that got Shirley thinking, why isn't she living with her husband? So she did a bit more digging, and it turned out that George, bless him, was not a well man, and he'd been in and out of hospital. He was actually in hospital in 1911, suffering from cancer. But that wasn't the reason they were necessarily living apart, because George eventually died in 1916, and Shirley then found George's will, as did we in our collection of Cheshire wills and probate records. You're going to bring it up, aren't you, Max? Mm-hmm. Aren't these cool documents as well? Do you remember last week I was saying one of the amazing things about wills is that it gives you a rare opportunity to hear your ancestors' own wishes and desires in their own words? Well, this is a prime example of that, because this document gave a bit of a much clearer idea of the state of the relationship. So basically, what George left everything to his mother and completely cut Clara out. So George's will is the second one, so it kind of forms the bottom half of the first page, top half of the second page, and he basically said, I hereby give device and bequeath unto my dear mother Elizabeth Sutton of Reed Farm aforesaid, with whom I am at present residing. So he was living with his mother at the time he wrote his will. He wasn't divorced or anything. He was out of hospital, but he'd moved out the family home and was living with his mother. I'm basically saying, who I'm living with at present, I give her, her heirs, executors and administrators for their own use and benefit, absolutely and forever, all my estates and effects, both real and personal. So, that gives an impression that he wasn't overly fond of his wife, or, the marriage was on the rocks. But this left Clara, now a widowed woman in 1911, with nothing to her name, in a very difficult position. She could not raise the children, so the children had to go and live with the grandmother. So again, just by looking at censuses and wills, I'll admit that Shirley discovered that the picture that was painted of Clara just cruelly abandoning the family and leaving her husband to die of a broken heart was not the case. George died in 1916, so it was before she'd even left. But then, by looking at even more marriage certificates, she discovered that Clara didn't even run away to America on her own. She remarried. She married a man named Arthur Spiddle. And there we have them in the passenger lists, I believe, Max. So we also found them in our collection of passenger lists leaving the UK. So here they are, sailing aboard the Cunard steamship Carmania from Liverpool to New York in August 1919, the year they married and 2 years after George's death. But census records went on to, shed even more clues into Clara's life in America. The 1940 census had her living, basically she found her as a patient of the New Hampshire and State Hospital. And after a bit of further digging, it turned out that poor Clara's life took yet another tragic turn. Arthur was even more unpleasant than her first husband. He was a violent, abusive drunk who gave his poor wife syphilis, and she ended the last 17 years of her life in hospitals where she sadly died from dementia brought on by syphilis. So poor Clara. So census records, marriage certificates completely transformed the image Shirley had of her ancestor, and Shirley actually left thinking, I've got to, she holds a special place in my heart now. This is not the person I thought she was. And last but not least, they also found evidence of African ancestry, in the sense that in her Shirley's paternal great-grandfather, George Rich, I think we've got him in the 1911 census as well, living in Birkenhead, which is where I went to school. So she's had a suspicion. They didn't know anything. She was like, we've heard rumours of African ancestry. They dig out George's 1911 census form, and the first thing they see is that he was born in Cape Town, South Africa. So the next half of the episode was spent over in South Africa looking at loads of interesting South African records, which we don't hold, so won't say too much more about that. But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting in the sense that it shows that a lot of family myths and legends often have some basis in fact, whether it's even only a tiny basis in fact, but there's normally some truth behind them. And yeah,
I've had a quick question just come in related to this, which is it's from Sarah Rose, and Sarah says, are there passenger lists of people returning to the UK?
No, I think National Archives might have some, but I know we don't have any online, tragically.
Google is your friend.
Google is your friend, yes. Should we do time for one more poll?
Yeah, time for one more poll, and then also you need to talk about the feature on the website.
I have.
Have you talked? Oh, sorry. I was busy doing other things.
Oh.
Sorry. No, can I just read out a couple of? Basically, the comments have been amazing today. There's been like, thank you everyone for getting these in, but the revelations that everyone's had. I mean, this one. So Nicole Hassel, her biggest revelation was her 3 times great grandfather being tried for manslaughter back in the 1900s. He was cleaning a gun and it accidentally went off and killed someone. But then he was judged and found not guilty of it. Feels like they had a good case of manslaughter, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Kimberly Winter Sullivan. She had a whacking great. This is actually in response to your question about whether you should tell the truth or not. A whacking great big lie that they were descended from pirates. Her great granddad coined the story that still lives on as family legend. And also, so we did have that competition going on, like anyone commenting to win the book. Can you hold up the book so everyone can see? There we go. And I basically have put everyone's names into, I use this program that just does like random name generators.
Oh, is it like a digital raffle machine?
Yeah, digital raffle thing. So it's come out, and the winner is Sue Pooley Eliza.
Congratulations, Sue! It's a good book. We'll get this in the post to you.
It also just so happens though that I then saw Sue's comment, and this is absolutely amazing.
Oh, really?
It's so good. It's really, so everyone, it's not really that suitable for work. Okay, we're definitely not for the faint of heart. But so her husband's family had a part with a cult in the 1750s that involved murder and nudity, and had people acting out the parts of God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, and Satan. They dug a hole and threw Satan and murdered him, then killed the Holy Spirit. And it goes on. People can read her comment in there. But
oh my!
It's
Whoa.
Amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, congrats, Sue. If you want to drop us a DM,
drop
private message with your address, we can send that out to you.
Oh, I can't wait to go read the comments after this. Like, honestly, I didn't expect we'd get any like that. Wow,
it's
you've
amazing.
all of you have some fascinating and unusual ancestors by the sounds of it. Wow.
It's really cool. I've been blown away. But yeah, everyone, take the time to read through everyone else's comments on this because it's been fantastic.
And what was the consensus? But it was tell the truth, was it?
Oh, everyone's consensus was tell the truth depending, but also be considerate to people's feelings. So the general consensus seemed to be that, if an elderly person has told this story, don't go and ruin their fun with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, I think that probably is. You want to tune in next week? We've got an exciting one next week. Next week's is all going to be around walking in the footsteps of your ancestors, retracing their movements. Whether you went on a heritage tour, whether you've been, looking through windows of houses that your ancestors lived on the 1911 census. Yeah, I've had a few strange looks from people in houses before me lingering outside. Do you think that explanation would work? I've never had anyone come out and go, "What are you doing outside my house?" But like, my ancestor lived here in 1841.
I think that explanation would work because it'd be a weird one to make up. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It would be a weird one to make up. So yeah, tune in. We've got a really cool video with Jen Baldwin, who is one of our is our US expert. Jen knows so much about family history, it's frightening. But we've shot a fantastic video with her where she came to visit the grave of her British ancestor last time she was in London. So tune in for that, it's going to be fun.
Oh, and it's not just the grave as well, that makes it sound...
Oh no, there's much more than that,
Yeah, it's really cool. Thank you everyone, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for all the comments coming in. If you could take 2 seconds to give us a like or a share, then we'd really appreciate it. But I hope you all have absolutely smashing weekends.
So do I. Enjoy the sunshine if you're in the UK. And if you're watching outside the UK, enjoy whatever weather you end up with. But yes, happy Friday, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.